Okay, so Coachella, everyone knows it, right?
Hmm.
Or at least heard of it. It's this massive thing in the desert every year.
Definitely.
And it feels like it's way more than just a music festival now. It's like a whole cultural moment. Influences fashion, blows up artists, takes over your Instagram feed.
Absolutely. It's got this huge ripple effect.
But then you also hear the other stuff. You know, the crazy ticket prices, some controversies swirling around the owners.
Right. There's definitely a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, exactly. So you send us a great batch of sources, articles, reports, all that. And for this deep dive, we really want to dig into why. Why is Coachella such a big deal? And what are all these different conversations happening around it?
Sounds good. The listener wanted a solid overview, quickly but thoroughly.
Exactly. Get the full picture without getting lost in the weeds. So where do we start? Maybe the beginning.
Yeah, let's do that. It's interesting how relatively new it is, considering its impact. It only started in 1999.
Wow, 99. Feels longer ago somehow.
Right. Paul Tollett and Rick Van Santen founded it. And their idea apparently was kind of a reaction against the really commercialized festivals that were popping up. They wanted something more authentic, focused on emerging artists.
Okay, more indie vibes initially. But I remember reading in the materials that first year wasn't exactly a smash hit financially.
No, not at all. They actually lost a significant amount of money.
Oof.
Yeah. But Tollett really believed in the vision, he pushed forward, which is kind of amazing when you think about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
Especially when you contrast it with now. What were tickets back then, like $50?
Yeah, around $50 the weekend in 99, and attendance was maybe 25,000 people total.
Okay, tiny compared to today. What are we talking now? 125,000 people a day.
Per day, yeah, over 2 weekends. And tickets, well, hundreds of dollars just for general admission. A lot more for VIP.
That's just a staggering transformation
Yeah.
from a niche, money-losing venture to this global cultural touchstone that, yeah, everyone references.
It really is.
Okay, so let's break down that cultural impact. Fashion seems like the obvious first place to go. Coachella fashion is practically its own category.
Oh, completely. It's fascinating how it became this, testing ground for whole aesthetics. Remember the mid-2000s, all that boho chic?
Oh, yeah. Flowy dresses, fringe, flower crowns. Vanessa Hudgens basically lived in that stuff there.
It's exactly. Celebrities like her really ran with that look at Coachella, and suddenly, boom, it was everywhere. Retailers jumped on it.
It was like a direct pipeline.
Right.
What people wore at Coachella showed up in stores a few months later.
Yeah.
But it seems like that specific look isn't quite the uniform it used to be. What did 2025 look like?
Definitely more diverse now. Less of a single uniform, more individual statements. You had Lady Gaga in that wild custom fecal matter outfit with the bird claws, super theatrical.
Oh, okay.
Then Teyana Taylor at the Revolve Festival side party, that sharp architectural black top and skirt. Very different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And even Shabuzi doing that modern Western thing with the white suit and those cool flower patches. So lots of different directions.
So it's not just one look anymore, but it still feels like the fashion industry pays very close attention.
Oh, absolutely. Brands literally plan festival collections around Coachella. Designers watch what attendees are wearing, not just celebs, but everyone, to gauge upcoming trends.
So it's kind of influencing trends from the ground up almost.
Yeah, in a way. You see styles bubble up there, and then brands from fast fashion all the way up to luxury houses like Gucci or Dior, they incorporate those festival-inspired elements. Publications like Vogue, WWD, they dedicate serious coverage to dissecting the looks each year.
Right. But it's interesting. I also saw some reports, I think Vogue and CNN mentioned it, saying things were getting a bit more normal this year.
Yeah, that's a really interesting counter trend that popped up. Less full-on costume, maybe, more like streetwear elements or more practical stuff. Things like motorcycle boots, Adidas Sambas, which are huge anyway, cowboy boots making a big comeback. Even celebs like Timothée Chalamet or Kylie Jenner were spotted in outfits that look, well, more comfortable and less like a deliberate festival costume.
Huh? Maybe a hangover from the pandemic? Comfort is king now.
Could be part of it. A broader shift towards practicality, maybe. But even with that shift, the impact of Coachella fashion is still undeniable, right? The numbers are wild.
Yeah, what were those stats? Google searches spiking like crazy.
After the first weekend in 2024, searches for Coachella fashion reportedly jumped over 2,000%. Probably similar this year.
Wow.
And retailers, they often see sales bumps of up to 30% on anything labeled festival wear in April and May.
And TikTok must just explode.
Billions of views. Hashtags like hashtag Coachella outfit 2025, hashtag festival fashion.
Yeah.
It's a content machine. So yeah, still a massive driver for fashion.
Okay, fashion check.
Yeah.
But the core is still the music, right?
Yeah.
And performing there seems like it can be a game changer for artists.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge launch pad. Look at Tyla this year, 2025. Her debut was a moment.
Yeah, I saw some clips. Looked amazing. She opened with Push to Start.
Yep. Did a surprise duet with Becky G, paid tribute to Aaliyah. She even said herself it was this huge milestone she dreamed of.
And the crowd reaction seems intense. Plus, everyone watching on the live stream.
Exactly. That global audience tuning in on YouTube is massive. And she had that iconic moment spray painting her name on that tiger statue. Memorable stuff.
Did it translate into streams and stuff afterwards?
Big time. Her monthly listeners on Spotify apparently jumped from around 15 million to over 25 million in just 2 weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah. And her big hit, Water, even re-entered the Billboard charts. It shows that direct impact.
It reminds me a bit of that Tame Impala story from way back.
Yeah, 2011, Kevin Parker talked about how they weren't really aware of how big a deal Coachella was until they got backstage and saw, all the other huge artists, celebrities, press. That gig was definitely a turning point for them internationally.
And there's data backing this up, right? Like artists generally see a bump.
For sure. Spotify data suggests, on average, artists get around a 50% increase in streams after playing Coachella.
50%.
And for newer emerging artists, it can be way higher, like 200, 300%. Doechii, for example, her streams apparently almost tripled after her set.
That's incredible. And it's not just boosting already big names, right? It seems like they make an effort to showcase smaller acts, international artists too.
That's a really important part of it. The 2025 lineup had artists from something like 27 different countries. So people attending, and again, that huge live stream audience, they get exposed to sounds they might never hear otherwise. It broadens horizons.
And then, of course, you have moments that just transcend the festival itself, like Coachella.
Oh, Coachella in 2018. That was more than a concert. It was a cultural earthquake.
Totally. The marching band, the HBCU theme, the celebration of Black culture. It was incredible.
Groundbreaking stuff. And the Homecoming documentary about it just amplified everything, got Emmy nominations. There was even research suggesting HBCU applications went up by like 12% afterwards.
Wow, a direct, real-world impact like that. That's powerful.
It shows the scale of influence a single Coachella performance can have.
Okay, so the influence is massive on fashion, on music careers, and obviously social media just pours gasoline on that fire.
Oh, absolutely. Coachella is a social media event as much as a physical one. Hashtags like #Coachella 2025, they just rack up millions, billions of views across Instagram, TikTok, everything.
I saw a stat saying it generates more online buzz than any other festival globally.
Yeah, according to Sprout Social, which is pretty wild when you think about festivals like Glastonbury that have been around way longer.
How many views are we talking?
In 2024, it was over 12 billion views for Coachella-related content, and 2025 was projected to be even higher.
That's mind-boggling. And influencers play a huge part in that number, I assume.
Definitely. Coachella accredits like over 500 influencers every year. They get access, and in return, they create content. It's basically free marketing on a massive scale, reaching billions of followers collectively.
So they amplify everything, the fashion, the surprise guests, the viral moments.
Exactly. Think back to like Rihanna in the crowd or the Tupac hologram years ago. More recently, Tyla's Tiger Stunt, Charlie XCX's set. Those things blow up online partly because of the influencer ecosystem.
And then there's the official YouTube live stream, which is huge in its own right.
Massive. Over 82 million viewers tuned in during 2024. It brings the festival to people who can't or don't want to attend in person.
And it's actually a revenue stream for Coachella too, right? YouTube pays them.
Yeah, estimates are around $5–10 million a year just from the YouTube deal. So the digital reach isn't just cultural, it's financial too.
It also feels like they've been putting more focus on diversity in the lineup lately.
That's definitely been a noticeable shift, yeah. Looking at the 2025 lineup, it was around 45% artists of color and about 38% female or non-binary artists.
That's quite different from the early days, which were more indie and rock focused.
Very different. It reflects broader changes in music and likely a conscious effort by the organizers to be more representative.
And that extends to accessibility at the festival itself, too.
Seems so. They've added more features like viewing platforms for people with disabilities, ASL interpreters, quiet zones for people who might need a break from the sensory overload.
Okay, so Coachella was a big moment for cultural representation, and it seems like there's maybe a wider effort now, too.
Yeah, using the platform to showcase diversity, both on stage and in making the event itself more inclusive.
Right. So massive cultural impact, huge influence.
Yeah.
But It's not all sunshine and flower crowns, is it?
Right.
There are definitely some recurring controversies and criticisms.
No, definitely not. There are some pretty significant downsides and points of friction that come up year after year.
Let's start with the most obvious one.
Yeah.
The cost. It's just incredibly expensive.
It really is. The ticket price alone is steep. 2025 was what, $599 for weekend 2, $649 for weekend 1 general admission.
Yeah, and VIP was like $1,400.
$1,399, yeah.
Yeah.
But like we said, that's just the entry fee. It's everything else that piles up.
Right. Travel, accommodation, whether you camp or try to find a hotel.
Camping passes started around $180, but hotels, forget about it. Prices skyrocket, easily thousands for the weekend.
And then food and drinks inside.
Yeah, you got a budget for that, maybe $60, $100 a day. Individual meals are like $15, $25, drinks $12, $20, even water is $5 a bottle.
Ouch. Plus, getting there and back each day if you're not camping. Ride shares, parking.
Rideshares can be $30 to $100 each way, depending on demand. Parking passes were $140, $180. It all adds up incredibly quickly.
I saw that anecdote about the person who spent $2,000 even with a free ticket, just on everything else.
Yeah, that tells you something. And the fact that apparently over half of the GA attendees use payment plans to buy their tickets.
Really? Why?
It definitely feeds into that perception that Coachella is becoming, elitist.
Yeah.
That the price tag excludes a lot of regular music fans.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so cost is huge.
Yeah.
What about the impact on the actual Coachella Valley, the local community? It must be a mixed bag.
Very much a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the economic boost is undeniable. That estimate of $700 million into the local economy, that's significant. Hotels are full, restaurants are packed, local businesses get a surge.
So good for business.
For many, yes. But the flip side hits the residents pretty hard. Housing costs, especially short-term rentals, go through the roof during the festival months. We're talking 300, 400% increases sometimes.
Seriously. So locals can get priced out of their own neighborhoods?
Temporarily, yeah. Some might even rent out their places and leave town because they can make so much money, but others just can't afford to stay. Plus, the traffic is insane, the noise. It definitely disrupts daily life for people living there.
Okay, that's tough.
Yeah.
Then there's the environmental footprint. An event that big has to be massive.
It is. The waste generated is staggering over 100 tons a day, something like 642 tons total over the 2 weekends.
And how much of that actually gets recycled?
The reported rate is only about 20%, which is pretty low compared to the national average.
Yikes. And the carbon emissions, all those people traveling, powering the stages.
Estimates are around 100,000 tons of CO2 for the 2 weekends. Travel is the biggest chunk of that. And then water usage.
In a drought-prone area like Southern California.
Exactly. It's estimated Coachella uses about 9 million gallons of water per weekend, which is apparently like what 100 average U.S. households use in a whole year.
Wow. That puts it in perspective. Now, they do have sustainability initiatives, right? I saw mentions of recycling programs, water stations.
They do. They have the BYO bottle campaign, free water refills, the recycling incentive where you trade bottles for a full one. They partner with Global Inheritance on art projects using recycled materials. They're using more solar, renewable diesel, had that battery-powered stage this year, offer carbon offsets.
So they're trying.
They are making efforts, yes. But the criticism is often that these are kind of drops in the ocean compared to the sheer scale of the event.
Like, it's inherently unsustainable to fly that many people to the desert.
That's the argument. That the fundamental model, mass travel to a remote location, massive resource consumption, makes true sustainability really difficult regardless of the initiatives. Some call for bigger changes, like capping attendance or focusing more on virtual options.
Okay, now, the big one. Philip Anschutz, AEG, the parent company. This seems to generate a lot of heat.
It does. Philip Anschutz is the billionaire owner of AEG, which owns Golden Voice, the promoter behind Coachella. He's got a huge empire sports teams like the LA Kings, arenas like Crypto.com.
And the controversies around his political and charitable donations.
Primarily, yes. Public records show that his foundation has made significant donations over the years to various conservative and religious organizations. Some of these groups have taken stances on issues like LGBTQ+ rights, abortion, and climate change that conflict with the views of many artists and attendees.
I saw specific figures mentioned, like donations to groups labeled as anti-LGBTQ+ fans.
Yes. Groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom and the Family Research Council received funding, particularly noted between 2010 and 2017. Reports also surfaced about donations in later years, including 2018, to other groups with similar stances, and support for conservative political causes and candidates.
So there's this clear tension between the owner's reported financial activities and the, inclusive, often liberal-leaning vibe of the festival itself.
Exactly. That's the core conflict people point to. Coachella features many LGBTQ+ artists and artists who support those causes, yet the profits ultimately benefit a company owned by someone whose foundation has supported groups opposing those rights.
Has Anschutz responded to this?
He has. He's called the reports fake news and garbage. He issued a statement in 2018 saying he supports LGBTQ rights and opposes discrimination. His company also highlighted a large donation to the Elton John AIDS Foundation.
But critics say the donation records tell a different story.
Right. Groups like GLA have pointed out that tax filings seem to contradict his statements about where the foundation's money goes. So there's definitely conflicting information and interpretations out there.
And this has led to actual calls for boycotts, like the #NoChella thing.
Yes, there have been campaigns, open letters from artists like Downtown Boys in the past, urging people not to attend or artists not to perform, using the #NoChella.
Have any major artists actually pulled out because of it?
Not really, no major headliners. Performing at Coachella is still seen as such a huge career milestone.
So it puts fans in a tough spot. You want to see the artist, experience the festival, but you're also aware of where the money might be going indirectly.
It's a definite ethical dilemma for some attendees. They have to weigh the experience against their feelings about Anschutz's reported donations. Some point to things like the Pride House at the festival as a positive countersignal within the event itself. GLA even suggested artists could donate a portion of their fee to relevant causes.
Interesting. Okay, moving from the owner to the overall feel. Commercialization. That's another big critique, right? That it's lost its soul.
That's a common refrain, yeah. It's undeniably shifted from its indie roots to a massive commercial enterprise. The ticket revenue alone is huge, estimated around $115 million.
Plus sponsorships, merch, food.
Exactly. And the sponsor presence is very visible. You have huge brand activations, pop-up shops, parties like the Revolve Festival happening alongside. Think American Weed Come, Pandora, those shower portals or manifestations. It's everywhere.
Has the number of sponsors grown a lot?
Oh, yeah. Compared to maybe 15 official partners back in 2010, now it's over 50. And those sponsorship deals can range from hundreds of thousands to multi-million-dollar packages.
And the goal for those brands is basically to get seen, get shared online.
Pretty much. Create those viral moments, get tagged in photos. Hypebeast famously called Coachella the influencer's Met Gala.
Okay. But the criticism is that this shifts the focus away from the music itself towards just getting the perfect Instagram shot.
That's the argument. That the experience becomes less about artistic discovery and more about conspicuous consumption and social media performance. There was that New York Times piece asking, did Coachella lose its soul to sponsors? Even Frank Ocean's much-discussed troubled set in 2023 was partly blamed by some on the pressures and scale of the event now. People's fashion choices are sometimes seen as being driven more by what looks good online than anything else.
Have artists commented on this shift too? People who've played there?
Some have, yeah. James Murphy from LCD Sound System talked about festivals becoming content factories. Tom York from Radiohead mentioned how hard it can be to connect with the audience through a sea of phones.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, besides cost, Anschutz, and commercialization, are there other recurring issues? Safety, maybe?
Safety is always a concern at events this large. Overcrowding, heat exhaustion, especially in the desert heat. There were over 1,100 medical incidents reported in 2024. They have medical staff and tents, but the sheer numbers pose a challenge.
And privacy. I think I read something about facial recognition.
Yeah, they started using facial recognition tech at the entrances around 2023, which definitely raised some privacy concerns among attendees and watchdog groups.
What about drug use? That's often associated with festivals.
It's present, yeah. There are reports of overdoses, increased calls for drug-related issues during the festival weekends. Coachella does have a medical amnesty policy, meaning you won't get in trouble for seeking help if you or a friend took something and they offer free drug testing kits as a harm reduction measure.
And cultural appropriation, that used to be a big topic.
It was, particularly around insensitive attire like Native American headdresses being worn as fashion accessories. There was significant backlash over the years.
Has that improved?
It seems there's more awareness now. Campaigns like #CoachellaNoto gained traction. Coachella itself put out what not to wear guidelines, and there seems to be more effort towards including indigenous artists and art installations as well.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground, the huge impact, but also these significant controversies and criticisms. With all that baggage, Why is Coachella still such a massive draw? Why does it persist?
I think at the end of the day, despite all the issues, it still offers a pretty unique experience. The sheer scale and diversity of the lineup is hard to match. You get huge headliners, emerging acts, international artists, all in one place.
And the production quality is generally really high, right? The sound, the stages.
Yeah, they invest a lot in that maybe $25–30 million a year just on production. Plus the excitement of surprise guests, which happens pretty often, maybe 15–20 surprise appearances each year.
And the art. Those giant installations are a huge part of the identity.
Definitely. They spend $35 million a year on commissioning those large-scale pieces. They really define the landscape and create that immersive atmosphere.
And then there's just the buzz, the social media dominance, feeling like you're part of this huge thing, even if you're just watching the live stream.
Exactly. That digital presence, the millions of YouTube subscribers, the live stream trending globally, it creates this sense of a shared global event that extends way beyond the people physically there. It allows for participation on different levels.
Right. And you put together that table summarizing the key numbers, which really drives home the scale.
Yeah, it just collects some of those key stats we've touched on.
Yeah.
The massive attendance, the high costs, the huge economic impact versus the environmental toll, the figures related to the Ann Schutz donations controversy, the scale of sponsorship, and that incredible social media reach. It just paints a picture of how big this thing is, both in its influence and its issues.
So wrapping it all up, it really does sound like Coachella is this cultural paradox.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. It's undeniably a birthplace for trends, a platform for diverse artists, a huge cultural force, but at the same time, it's incredibly expensive, hyper-commercialized, carries a significant environmental burden, and has these ethical questions hanging over its ownership.
And opinions are clearly divided. People love it, people criticize it.
For sure, but its significance is undeniable. It's a marker in pop culture, referenced everywhere. Academics even study the Coachella phenomenon. In the music industry, it's still seen as a major tastemaker, influencing album releases, streaming numbers, a kingmaker in some ways.
Which brings us to the big question. Can it continue like this? Can it evolve to address these criticisms sustainably and ethically?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some industry watchers think it's at a crossroads, especially with the rise of smaller, more curated festivals. Coachella has made efforts more diverse lineups, sustainability initiatives, community programs.
But are those genuine changes or just image management?
That's what critics often ask. Is it fundamental change or just enough to quiet the criticism? It's hard to say definitively.
So for you, looking at all this, what's the core takeaway about Coachella right now in 2025?
I think it's that Coachella remains incredibly influential, shaping music, fashion, online culture, but you can't really understand its significance without also grappling with all these complexities. The cost, the environmental impact, the commercial pressures, the ownership controversies. It's all part of the package now.
It really does feel like a microcosm of bigger societal issues and tensions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It reflects debates about consumerism, sustainability, corporate responsibility, representation, all played out on a giant dusty field in California.
Well, whether you're planning to brave the crowds and the cost, watch it all unfold on YouTube, or just observe the cultural ripples from afar, it's clear Coachella is still something we'll be talking about.
No doubt about it. It'll be fascinating to see how it navigates these challenges moving forward.
Definitely. So what do you think? Is Coachella worth the hype, the cost, the controversy? Let us know your take in the comments. We'd love to keep this conversation going. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.